him not to remain an alien, but to get into the spirit of American life, even if it meant breaking vows he had held in India. Almost all Indian immigrants compromised their old ways, but Prabhupada's idea was different. He could not be budged. The others may have had to compromise, he thought, but they had come here to beg technological advancement from the West. I have not come to beg something, he said, but to give something. In his solitary wanderings, Srila Prabhupada made acquaintances with a number of local people. There was even Mr. Rubin, a Turkish Jew who worked as a New York City subway contractor. Mr. Rubin met Prabhupada on a park bench, and being a social fellow and world traveller, he sat and talked with the Indian holy man. Mr. Rubin. He seemed to know that he would have temples filled up with devotees. He would look out and say, I'm not a poor man, I am rich. There are temples and books, they are existing. They are there, but time is separating us from them. He always mentioned we and spoke about the one who sent him, the spiritual master. He didn't know people at that time, but he said, I am never alone. He always looked like a lonely man to me. That's what made me think of him as a holy man like Elijah, who always went out alone. I don't believe he had any followers. When the weather was not rainy or icy, Prabhupada would catch the bus to Grand Central Station and visit the Central Library on 42nd Street. The Srimad Bhagavatam volumes were there. Some of the same volumes he had sold to the US Embassy in New Delhi. And he took pleasure in seeing them listed in the card catalogue and learning that they were being regularly checked out and read. He would sometimes walk through UN Plaza or walk up New Indian House on 64th Street, where he had met Mr. Malhotra, the consulate officer. It was through Mr. Malhotra that he contacted the Tagore Society and secured an invitation to lecture before one of their meetings back in November. Riding on the bus down Fifth Avenue, he looked out at the buildings and imagined that someday he could use them in Krishna's service. He would take special interest in certain buildings, one on 23rd Street and one with a dome on the 14th Street, attracted his attention. He would think of how the materialists had constructed such elaborate buildings and yet made no provisions for spiritual life. Despite all the great achievements of technology, the people felt empty and useless. They had built grand buildings, but the children were going to LSD. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 4th Canto, Chapter 24, entitled Chanting the Song by Lord Shiva. The song sung by Lord Shiva, text 30. Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavanyata Namad Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyosti Karhichit Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavanyata Namad Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyosti Karhichit Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavanyata Namad Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyosti Karhichit. Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavan Yata Namam Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyostikarichit Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavan Yata Namam Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyostikarichit Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavan Yata Namad Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyostikarichit Ata Bhagavata Yuyam Priyasta Bhagavan Yata Nanam Bhagavatanam Cha Preyan Anyostikarichit Ata Therefore Bhagavata devotees Yuyam all of you Priya very dear to me Sta you are Bhagavan the Supreme Personality of Godhead Yata as Na never Mat than me Bhagavatanam of the devotees Cha also Preyan very dear Anya others Asti there is Parachit at any time. Translation and purport by Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. You are all devotees of the Lord, and as such, I appreciate that you are as respectable as the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. I know in this way that the devotees also respect me, and that I am dear to them. Thus, no one can be as dear to the devotees as I am. Purport. It is said, Vaishnavamyuta Shambhu, Lord Shiva is the best of all devotees. Therefore, all devotees of Lord Krishna are also devotees of Lord Shiva. In Vrindavan, there is a Lord Shiva temple called Gopishvara. The gopis used to worship not only Lord Shiva, but Katyani or Durga, but their aim was not only to worship Lord Shiva, their aim was to attain the favor of Lord Krishna. A devotee of Lord Krishna does not disrespect Lord Shiva, but worships Lord Shiva as the most exalted devotee of Lord Krishna. Consequently, wherever a devotee worships Lord Shiva, he prays to Lord Shiva to achieve the favor of Krishna. He does not request material profit. In the Bhagavad Gita 7:20, it is said that generally people worship demigods for some material profit. Driven by material lust, they worship demigods. But a devotee does not do so, for he is never driven by material lust. That is the difference between a devotee's respect for Lord Shiva and an asura's respect for him. The asura worships Lord Shiva to take some benediction from him, misuses the benediction, and ultimately is killed by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, who awards him liberation. Because Lord Shiva is a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he loves all the devotees of the Supreme Lord. Lord Shiva told the Prachetas that because they were devotees of the Lord, he loved them very much. Lord Shiva was not kind and merciful only to the Prachetas, but anyone who is a devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very dear to Lord Shiva. Not only are the devotees dear to Lord Shiva, but he respects them as much as he respects the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Similarly, the devotees of the Supreme Lord worship Lord Shiva as the dearmost devotee of Lord Krishna. They do not worship him as a separate personality of Godhead, It is stated in the list of Nama Aparad that it is an offense to think that chanting of the holy name of Hari and chanting of Hara or Shiva are the same. The devotee must always know that Lord Vishnu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead and that Lord Shiva is his devotee. A devotee should be offered respect on the same level as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and sometimes even more respect. Indeed, Lord Ram, the Personality of Godhead himself, sometimes worshipped Lord Shiva. A devotee is worshipped by the Lord. Why should a devotee not be worshipped by other devotees on the same level as the Lord? This is the conclusion. From this verse, it appears that Lord Shiva blesses the Asuras simply for the sake of formality. Actually, he loves one who is devoted to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Om Gyanantamarandasya Gyananjala Shalakaya Chakshu Umilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance. My spiritual master is opening my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my respect for my basic and Sandhi. Okay, so there's lots of different points in this purport, so I thought that we could just go through it section by section. The first is that Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee of Lord Krishna, and we'll see evidence of that later on in this chapter, where Lord Shiva is, I think it's about 30 verses or something of praise of Lord Krishna. He's describing Krishna with such devotion about his beautiful form, his qualities. So we'll experience this later on in the chapter. It says here that all devotees of Lord Krishna are also devotees of Lord Shiva, and that in Vrindavan there's a Lord Shiva temple called Kapishvara. So it's very famous that this temple, when Vaishnavas often enter Vrindavan, they go and take the blessings of Lord Shiva in this form of Kapishvara before they experience the holy Dham. It's said that there's 5 different personalities that grant entrance to the Dham. Tulsi Devi, Yamuna, Brajarenu, the dust of Vrindavan, Govardhan Hill, and Gopeshwar. And this is a very ancient 5,000-year-old deity of Lord Shiva who, at one point, Lord Shiva had heard the music playing of Krishna's flute, and he followed that sound, and he could see that Lord Krishna was engaging in the Rasa Leela with his devotees, and he also wanted to enter that pastime as well. So he went to the edge of that arena, and Yogamaya said, "You can't enter here. You're in a male form. This is Krishna's pastimes with his female friends. You can't enter here." But Lord Shiva was very eager to experience this pastime. So Yogamaya said, "Okay, I can take you to Tulsi Devi," and Tulsi Devi, who arranges all Krishna's pastimes in Vrindavan, said, "Okay, you can. If you want to experience this, you have to be in a female form." So Lord Shiva was so eager to experience this with Krishna that he said, "Okay, I will take on a female form." So he took on the form of a gopi and entered the Rasa Leela and was dancing. And Krishna could sense that somebody was different here in this arena today. So he asked Lalita Saki to go and see who is here that is different. There's a different atmosphere here today. And she looked around and said, "Well, I can't see any. Well, there's one new gopi here. She's very beautiful and she has 3 eyes." Krishna said, "Okay, bring her here." And so when Lord Shiva, in that form of a gopi, came before Krishna, Krishna just burst out laughing. He was so happy to see Lord Shiva. He said, "What are you doing here? You know, like you're the ultimate masculine form, and here you are dressed as a gopi in a female form." And Lord Shiva said, "I wanted to come and experience your dance with the gopis." And Krishna was very happy to see Lord Shiva. And he said, "Okay, from now on you'll be known as Gopishvara." And Shimashi Radharani heard this. "Gopishvara, the Lord of the gopis? Like, you've never called me the Lord of the gopis. These are all my gopis. How are you calling this new person the Lord of the gopis?" And she became very angry and said, "I will leave. I'll leave." And Krishna said, No, this is Lord Shiva. And he's actually going to take on a very important service for me, to be the protector of the Dham and protector of the Rasa Leela. because many unqualified people want to experience this Rasa Leela or take part in these pastimes that are very elevated. And Lord Shiva, he is qualified to guard this very sacred land and this very sacred pastime of mine. So many people come to Vrindavan with some kind of bogus ideas, and sometimes people even enter Vrindavan, but they physically enter Vrindavan. You know, you can buy an airplane ticket to Vrindavan, you can get a visa, but this doesn't actually qualify you to enter into the consciousness and the mood of Vrindavan. So Lord Shiva is there to make sure only qualified people can understand the highest truths. And this is why devotees go and they offer their respects to Lord Shiva before their kind of pilgrimage in the Dham, because we get the blessings of the Vaishnavas before we go to the Dham. And it says here that Lord Shiva is the greatest Vaishnava. So he is one of the protectors of the Dham. So yeah, it's a very special temple, Kapishvara. And then it says here that the gopis used to worship not only Lord Shiva, but Katyayani or Goddess Durga. And their aim was to achieve the favor of Lord Krishna. So this is a very important point, like the purpose behind the worship of Lord Shiva. The Lord Shiva is very happy if we approach him as the greatest Vaishnava. But if we approach him as a demigod or as a supreme controller, then he doesn't like that position so much. He, like in Bhagavad Gita, where Krishna says, like, where you approach me, I'll respond accordingly. If you approach Lord Shiva as a demigod, then in some ways he is easily pleased and can give various benedictions that you're after. They may be beneficial or not so beneficial, but if you approach as a devotee of Lord Krishna and approach Lord Shiva as the greatest Vaishnava, then he can help you very much in your spiritual life. So here it's talking about the pastimes. Sometimes the Vrajavasis would worship Lord Shiva. There's a couple of pastimes. Well, there's 3 pastimes in the Krishna book that I can think of in relation, or 2 in relation to this. One is where the unmarried gopis, they worship Goddess Katyayani to get Krishna as their husband. So they performed a particular vrata. Was it in Kartik? After Kartik. They would eat only unspiced khichdi, perform various austerities, and worship Goddess Katyayani to have Krishna as their husband. And yeah, Krishna came and fulfilled their desire in various different ways. And also there was a pastime where the devotees of the residents of Vrindavan, they wanted to observe Shivaratri. And at the beginning of the chapter, Srila Prabhupada says that it says, once upon a time, the devotees wanted to observe Shivaratri. So he said it's not like a regular thing that the Vaishnavas have to do, but you know, occasionally the residents of Vrindavan, they felt like observing the Shivaratri festival, so they were going on this journey, and they'd been on this long journey, and when they got there, they took bath, performed the regular principles, and were going to take some rest, and then a great big the demon came and started to swallow Nanda Maharaj. And the residents of Vrindavan were calling out to Krishna for help, because whenever anything happens, you know, whether it's Indra sending the rain clouds or demons attacking or fires, the first instance of the Vrajavasis is to call for Krishna. So again, they called for Krishna. Krishna came and touched the demon, was quickly became a great demigod, and he explained his pastime. And in this chapter, towards the end of the chapter, Prabhupada was saying how, even though at the beginning the devotees had gone to offer respects to Lord Shiva and observe Shivaratri, everything they do just brings them closer to Krishna. So even though they were offering respects to Lord Shiva, it brought them closer to Krishna as their protector, maintainer, life and soul. yeah, it says here that the devotee of Lord Krishna does not disrespect Lord Shiva, but worships Lord Shiva as the most exalted devotee of the Lord. So sometimes when people first come along, I mean, like myself, I came from a Western background. When I first went along to Bhakti Lounge, which is like a loft in Wellington, I had no idea who Krishna was, who Arjuna was, who Shiva was. Like I had no idea who anybody was. You know, they had a bit of a talk on Bhagavad Gita, and afterwards I sat down with the devotee, and she's like, you know, Krishna, and I was like, no, who's Krishna? Like, he's God. It's like, oh, okay, you know. So I had like no idea who anybody was. But I've learned everything about the different personalities through Srila Prabhupada's books. So, you know, at the beginning when somebody comes along, we hear, you know, that people go to the demigods for material benefit or something. We may have casual or offensive mentality towards, you know, oh, Lord Shiva is just a demigod. Like, that's not very pleasing to Krishna at all. He's one of his greatest devotees. And in natural devotion, one of the principles of performing devotional service is to offer respects to the demigods. And in that particular part, Srila Prabhupada says that a Vaishnav offers respects to even an ant, let alone great demigods like Lord Brahma, Shiva, Indra. But of course, the purpose behind it and the knowledge behind it is different. So we're not worshipping for our own personal sense gratification or for some means by itself or as them as an individual controller, but we're worshipping them in relation to Krishna as part and parcel of Krishna. Yeah. So consequently, a devotee worships Lord Shiva and prays to Lord Shiva to achieve the favor of Krishna, not for material profit. And then Prabhupada talks about how asuras worship Lord Shiva and take benediction from him. And there's lots of pastimes in the Bhagavatam about asuras taking benedictions from powerful demigods like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, and I was thinking of a particular pastime of Vritasura in the Krishna book. So Vritasura, he wanted to achieve great power, and so he thought that Lord Shiva is very easily pleased, so I'll perform a yajna, a sacrifice for him. And so, because this demon was in the mode of ignorance, he performed a sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. He created a fire and started to cut off pieces of his flesh and offer them as oblations into the fire. And this is definitely sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. Yeah, when we're performing austerities, they shouldn't, like in Bhagavad Gita, it talks about different austerities in the mode of goodness, passion, and ignorance. You know, passion is fruitive results, and ignorance, it tortures the body and the super soul within the body because we're torturing the body. So this is a sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. And we should think about this when we're performing austerities and sacrifices ourselves. Like the purpose of them is to please Krishna. And one of my god sisters once, she asked the Shakti energy, like, unless I'm, you know, completely giving every drop of energy I have and sacrificing until I'm basically sick, I don't feel like I'm, you know, offering enough to Krishna. I'm not performing enough austerity for Krishna. And she said, this isn't what Krishna wants. Like, if your husband wanted to prove his love for you, then would he do that by, you know, nearly killing himself through torturing the body, by doing all these marathons constantly back to back that, you know, you've got no health left, your mind isn't peaceful because you're so exhausted all the time. Yeah, Krishna wants our love and our devotion. He doesn't want us to, you know, prove our love by completely destroying the body. This is actually sacrifice in the mode of ignorance. Of course, we have to stretch ourselves. There's like we can become too comfortable in spiritual life, where we just don't endeavor at all. We can become very passionate, where we're over endeavoring for things that are hard to achieve, maybe for profit, adoration, distinction, and this kind of austerity. It doesn't focus on Krishna; it focuses more on ourselves. And then there's austerities in the mode of goodness, where we're aligned with pleasing Krishna. and we're stretching ourselves, we're sacrificing for Krishna, but not to the point where we're sacrificing our health or our family or, these things. So we have to be very balanced. And yeah, it was nice at the beginning of Kartik, Kirti Banerjee in class, she gave a little talk to the students and said, in Kartik, form a vow that you can do every day without, kind of resenting it. Don't say, oh, I'm gonna read 100 pages of Krishna book every day. And you do that for 2 days, and then by the third day, it's like, oh no, I've got these other commitments, and just do something nice for Krishna with love that you would normally do. Offer a flower or just something every day that you can do with devotion and love to develop your feelings for Krishna. But in this pastime, Vritasura, he went really over the top. So he's just cutting off pieces of his flesh and offering the fire. And when Lord Shiva didn't come, he was preparing to cut off his own head. So Lord Shiva came and said, okay, this is too much, just stop. Whatever it is you want, I will give it. And then this demon said, then I want the benediction that whoever's head I touch with my hand, their head will crack. And Lord Shiva was like, oh no, why did I promise him whatever he wanted? So with a sorry heart, he said, okay, you can have this benediction. But then, of course, this devotee saw Gauri, Lord Shiva's wife, and decided, okay, I will kill Lord Shiva and take his wife. And so then Lord Shiva started to run. It said he ran from the earth to the sky, to the different planetary systems. Wherever he would go, the other powerful demigods, they couldn't help him. So he ran to Lord Vishnu, to Krishna. And Lord Krishna came in this form of a brahmachari, very beautiful, very bewildering. And he came to the demon Vritasura and he said, oh, why are you running? You look very tired. What's happening? And he said, oh, I'm chasing Lord Shiva. I want to kill him. And he gave me this benediction. I can kill anybody by touching their heads. And Krishna, in this form of a brahmachari, just laughed and said, oh, Shiva, he's always promising these things, but he doesn't actually have the power to give these benedictions. This is, it's not going to be true. So you can prove it. So you touch his head, nothing's going to happen, and then you can kill him because he's made you look silly. Okay, so this is quite, because of his beauty and because the demon was quite tired from chasing Lord Shiva for so long, he became bewildered and thought, okay. He said, okay, so touch your own head. If you touch your own head, then it proves that this isn't true, because you can't catch Shiva, he's running too fast. So touch your own head, it will prove it's not true, and then you can just kill Shiva. So he touched his own head, and obviously his head exploded, and his head cracked, and he died. So this is the nature of having these benedictions fulfilled. So we understand that Lord Shiva, he can award these benedictions that are not so good for the living entity. But in the Chaitanya Charitamrita, Krishna says that actually my devotees, if they come to me with a benediction, they come to me with some desire in their heart that's not good for them. There's different ways that Krishna deals with these desires in our heart. Sometimes he'll fulfill those desires, but in a way that won't make us want those desires again, so we'll become purified of those desires. Or sometimes I won't give that benediction. It's going to be difficult for people's spiritual life. It's going to cause them pain in the future. So sometimes we have these, burning desires in the heart, and we're praying to Krishna for them. Actually, Chaitanya Charitamrita just gave a wonderful class a few days ago, well, weeks ago now, I think. Time's going quickly. About how do we, anybody remember the title? How do we deal with unfulfilled prayers to Krishna? Like we're praying to Krishna, but those prayers don't seem to be answered. So how do we deal with them? The class is still on Auckland classes Facebook page. So if you haven't watched it, yeah, it's a really beautiful class to watch. And he was talking how actually when we reveal our heart to someone, this is one of the 6 loving exchanges. If we have a problem and we love and trust someone enough to reveal our heart about it, then it brings us closer in the relationship. There's a stronger bond in the relationship. So even if it feels like Krishna hasn't fulfilled that prayer or desire, actually he's fulfilled a desire of us coming closer to him through that process of prayer. I really didn't do him justice how I just made that summary then, but yeah, it's a beautiful class. You can listen to it. And then, yeah, it moves on to the part how Lord Shiva is a great devotee of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he loves all the devotees of the Supreme Lord. So it takes somebody with a pure heart, it takes a great devotee to be able to love everybody. Sometimes when we're in the association of devotees, then because we're all going through this anatta nivritti process and we're all conditioned souls, sometimes there's like rubbings between devotees and conflicts, and not everybody we have the same mood, even though we're all trying to serve Krishna, all trying to serve Srila Prabhupada. Sometimes a way of doing that differs, but that doesn't mean that we don't love the devotees, because actually we're all one family. We're in this family of Srila Prabhupada, but it does take some skills to be able to interact with all devotees properly. And this is a great art in Vaishnava culture. And we know that if we commit offences towards devotees, and it's said that there's a mad elephant offence. So if we're not dealing with devotees properly, then it's a great stumbling block in our spiritual life. But Lord Shiva, he's as a great devotee, then he has this love for everyone. And it says here that he had this love and this well-wishing of the Prachetas. So even though it says here he was, at the end it says he was offering sometimes he offers blessings as like a sake of formality, but actually with the Prachetas, because they were devotees of Krishna, and they had their method of worshipping him was in relation to Krishna, then he had that love in his heart, which was like a heartfelt blessing. So it wasn't a blessing out of formality; it was the actual well-wishing of their spiritual life. So this is the blessings, the benedictions, the boons that we want from Lord Shiva is heartfelt blessings for our spiritual life. So my thinking, whenever I try and read, I try and think, what can I apply? Because sometimes we read and we reflect, but then if we're not thinking about what we can apply in our lives, then sometimes we can close the book and forget about it. So I was thinking, what can I apply from these teachings? I mean, just from reading this and reading this for studying for class, I was thinking how my relationship with Lord Shiva has definitely I've grown in understanding of how to respect Lord Shiva, and especially when entering the Dham. So in a couple of weeks, Krishna willing, Madhu Rita and I are going to go to Sri Vrindavan Dham. So ask the blessings of the devotees here so we can go safely and enter into the mood of Vrindavan and come back safely as well. So it's a nice consciousness to go with actually taking the blessings of the devotees and Lord Shiva and the different personalities in the Dham that can actually grant us entrance into the actual mood. The mood. But are there any comments or questions? I mean, it's a very personal. You can listen. Indra Maharaj gave some really nice lectures in entering the Dham, and I mean, normally when we come to Vrindavan, we've come straight from the airport and we're not so clean anyway. So that's my as well. When I arrive, I roll in the dust of Vrindavan because that's a nice way to enter. And then I go and purify myself. And I normally go to Srila Prabhupada's Samadhi first, actually, because there's these great personalities and various traditions. But in my heart, Srila Prabhupada is the person that has brought me to Vrindavan. So that's how I enter. But everybody has a very different personal relationship with Krishna and a different way of coming to Krishna consciousness. So that's how I enter. Anybody else have any comments or questions about that? Mm. 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 Yeah. Mm. Yeah, and it's very beautiful where we are in Krishna Balaram, like Ram Reti, so the sand is very, very soft. There's a beautiful pastime where when Krishna was old enough to take the calves to the forest, but Mother Yashoda was worried about his soft feet, so she said, "Okay, I want you to wear shoes and take an umbrella." And he said, "Well, I'm going with my cows. I'm not having anything they don't have, so my cows also need to have shoes and umbrellas." He said, "I'm not going to go. I'm not going to be more comfortable than they are." And so then in the evening, was it the cows that stomped the ground to make it very, very soft? Somebody went and made the sand very, very soft beforehand, so that because Krishna was refusing to wear shoes, so the sand was very, very soft. And the sand, especially where Prabhupada built Krishna Balaram Mandir, Ram Reti, so this is where Krishna and Balaram used to play in the soft sand. So it's very special. Mm. Any other comments or anybody have any? Yeah? Okay. Prabhupada ki jai.